In the quiet solitude of her observatory, nestled high in the mountains far from the bustling cities below, Dr. Eleanor Hayes had spent countless nights scanning the cosmos. Her telescope, a magnificent instrument that seemed to drink in starlight like a thirsty wanderer, had become her closest companion over the years. The stars above had always whispered secrets to her, their ancient light carrying stories from across unimaginable distances. Yet tonight felt different, charged with an electricity that made the fine hairs on her arms stand on end. The air was unusually still, as if the entire mountain held its breath in anticipation. Eleanor adjusted her equipment, her practiced hands moving with precision despite the fluttering sensation in her chest. She had detected something unusual, a signal, faint but persistent, emanating from a region of space she'd studied for years without incident. At first, she thought it might be interference, perhaps some stray radiation bouncing off Earth's atmosphere. But as the hours passed and the signal grew stronger, more coherent, doubt began to dissolve into wonder. It wasn't just any signal, it carried patterns. Complex sequences that defied random chance, each pulse building upon the last in ways that suggested intelligence. Eleanor's heart raced as she recorded the data, her mind struggling to process what this could mean. First contact. The phrase echoed through her thoughts, both thrilling and terrifying. Humanity had long dreamed of this moment, but now that it seemed within reach, uncertainty gripped her. Was she ready? Was anyone? The night deepened, and the signal continued to strengthen, almost as though it were reaching out to her personally. Eleanor worked tirelessly, cross-referencing frequencies, mapping coordinates, and analyzing every detail she could extract. Her exhaustion melted away under the weight of discovery. For the first time in her life, she felt truly connected, not just to the universe, but to something beyond it. Something alive. And then, just as dawn began to paint the horizon with soft hues of pink and gold, the signal changed. It wasn't subtle. It was unmistakable. A new pattern emerged, one that seemed to carry intention rather than mere information. Eleanor froze, her fingers hovering over the keyboard as her eyes widened. This wasn't just communication. It was an invitation. Her mind reeled as she deciphered the message. Coordinates. A location. An arrival point somewhere near Saturn's orbit. The implications hit her like a tidal wave. They wanted to meet. Whoever or whatever they were coming here. To Earth. To her. Eleanor sat back in her chair, trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. She had spent her entire career searching for answers among the stars, never imagining she would find herself at the center of such a monumental event. The alien presence wasn't distant or abstract anymore. It was real, tangible, and closer than she could have ever imagined. As the first rays of sunlight filtered into the observatory, she realized her life, and perhaps the fate of humanity, was about to change forever. Days turned into weeks as preparations unfolded with a fervor that bordered on chaos. Governments scrambled to assemble teams of scientists, diplomats, and military personnel, all while grappling with how to address an encounter no one had anticipated. Eleanor found herself thrust into the spotlight, her role evolving from solitary astronomer to key figure in humanity's response. Despite the whirlwind of activity, she couldn't shake the sense that she was being guided by forces far greater than herself. Every decision, every step forward, felt like threads weaving together a tapestry she couldn't fully comprehend yet. The journey to Saturn's orbit became both a logistical marvel and a deeply personal odyssey for Eleanor. Aboard the spacecraft Odyssey, humanity's most advanced vessel, she stood alongside a diverse crew united by purpose but divided by their interpretations of what awaited them. Some saw opportunity, others saw peril. Eleanor, however, felt something else entirely. An inexplicable pull, as though the signal she had decoded months ago still resonated within her very soul. It was as if the aliens weren't merely calling out, they were calling to her. When the ship finally reached the designated coordinates, the sight before them defied comprehension. Suspended in the vastness of space was a structure unlike anything humanity had ever conceived, a colossal iridescent sphere shimmering with colors that seemed to shift and dance like liquid light. Its surface pulsed gently, radiating warmth even across the cold vacuum of space. The crew fell silent, awestruck by its beauty and scale. Eleanor pressed her hand against the viewport, her breath fogging the glass as tears welled in her eyes. This wasn't just technology, it was art, life, and mystery intertwined. Communication began tentatively, mediated through bursts of energy and intricate patterns of light projected from the sphere. Over time, these exchanges grew more nuanced, revealing glimpses of the beings who inhabited it. They called themselves the Veilith, a species whose biology blended organic and crystalline elements in ways that challenged human understanding. Their voices, when translated, carried harmonies that resonated not only in sound but in emotion, bypassing language barriers altogether. Each interaction left Eleanor feeling profoundly moved, as though she were glimpsing fragments of truths too vast to fully grasp. Among the Veilith, one figure stood apart, a towering, radiant entity known as the Queen. She embodied everything the Veilith represented: elegance, wisdom, and an aura of serene authority. When Eleanor first encountered her during a virtual meeting facilitated by holographic projections, she felt her knees weaken beneath her. The Queen's form shimmered with opalescent hues, her elongated limbs adorned with delicate filigree-like structures that glowed softly. Her presence commanded reverence, yet there was also kindness in her gaze, a curiosity mirrored in Eleanor's own wide-eyed wonder. As days passed, Eleanor found herself drawn deeper into interactions with the Queen. While other members of the crew focused on diplomatic protocols and scientific analysis, she became the primary liaison between humanity and the Veilith leader. Conversations with the Queen transcended mere dialogue. They felt like shared dreams, where thoughts flowed freely and emotions intertwined without words. Eleanor marveled at how effortlessly the Queen seemed to understand her innermost feelings, often responding with gestures or expressions that felt uncannily intuitive. One evening, aboard the Odyssey, Eleanor received a summons to join the Queen in a private chamber within the sphere. Guided by luminous pathways that shifted beneath her feet, she entered a space bathed in golden light. The Queen awaited her, seated on what appeared to be a throne crafted from living crystal. Around them, smaller Veilith moved gracefully, tending to unseen tasks with fluid motions. Eleanor bowed instinctively, though the gesture felt inadequate in the face of such majesty. "You honor us with your presence," the Queen said, her voice resonating like a symphony. "We have watched your kind for many cycles of your sun. You are remarkable." Eleanor swallowed hard, overwhelmed by the weight of those words. "Your people are extraordinary," she replied haltingly. "I've never seen anything like you." A soft chime-like laugh escaped the Queen. "Nor we you. There is much we wish to share." With that, she extended a slender arm, offering something cradled delicately in her palm. It was small, no larger than a child's toy, and glowed faintly with a warm, amber hue. Intricate carvings spiraled across its surface, forming patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. "For you," the Queen said simply, placing the object into Eleanor's trembling hands. "A token of our regard." Eleanor stared at the gift, mesmerized. It was breathtakingly beautiful, its craftsmanship surpassing anything human hands could achieve. Yet as she held it, a strange sensation washed over her, a mingling of joy and unease, as though the object carried significance far beyond its physical form. She looked up at the Queen, searching for answers in her luminous eyes. "What does it mean?" Eleanor asked softly. The Queen tilted her head, her expression enigmatic. "It means connection. Unity. A bond forged across stars." Though Eleanor nodded in acknowledgement, a flicker of doubt lingered in her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that this exchange held layers she didn't yet understand. Still, she clutched the gift tightly, unable to deny the profound impact it had already begun to exert on her heart. Back aboard the Odyssey, Eleanor retreated to her quarters, clutching the glowing artifact close to her chest. The hum of the ship's engines faded into the background as she sat alone, turning the object over in her hands. Its warmth seeped into her skin, soothing yet unsettling, as if it carried a life of its own. She traced the swirling patterns etched into its surface, marveling at how they seemed to shift subtly under her touch. Each curve and line told a story she couldn't fully decipher, but somehow, deep down, she felt connected to it, as though it whispered secrets meant only for her. 4 hours, she examined the gift, trying to piece together its purpose. Was it a symbol of friendship? A relic of immense cultural value? Or something else entirely? Her scientific training urged her to analyze it objectively, but her instincts resisted. This wasn't just an object, it was imbued with meaning, intention, and perhaps even emotion. The Queen's words echoed in her mind. a bond forged across stars. What did that truly mean? As the days passed, the artifact began to affect her in ways she couldn't explain. Strange dreams filled her nights, vivid visions of floating cities suspended among constellations, crystalline forests bathed in eternal twilight, and figures resembling the Valeth moving in harmonious synchrony. In these dreams, Eleanor felt whole, as though she belonged to something greater than herself. Yet when she woke, a pang of longing lingered, leaving her restless and yearning for answers. Her colleagues noticed the change in her demeanor. Once driven by logic and precision, Eleanor now seemed distracted, her focus drifting during meetings and discussions. Captain Ramirez, the mission leader, pulled her aside one evening after a particularly tense briefing. "Dr. Hayes," he began, his tone measured but firm, "is everything all right? You've been distant." Eleanor hesitated, unsure how to articulate what she was experiencing. "I'm fine," she said finally, though the words felt hollow. "Just processing everything." Ramirez studied her for a moment, his sharp gaze lingering on the artifact she kept tucked safely in her pocket. He didn't press further, but his concern was evident. "We're all in uncharted territory here," he said gently. "But remember, we need you sharp. Whatever's going on, don't let it cloud your judgment." She nodded, grateful for his understanding, but the weight of his words only added to her unease. How could she explain that the artifact wasn't just affecting her judgment, it was reshaping her very perception of reality? That every time she touched it, she felt closer to the Valeth, to the Queen, and to a truth she couldn't yet name? Determined to uncover its secrets, Eleanor dedicated her free time to studying the artifact. She ran scans, analyzed its composition, and documented every observation meticulously. Yet no matter how advanced the equipment, the results remained inconclusive. The artifact resisted classification, defying conventional physics and chemistry. It was as if it existed in a realm beyond human comprehension, a bridge between worlds, or perhaps between dimensions. Her growing obsession didn't go unnoticed. Dr. Lin, the team's xenobiologist, approached her one day while she pored over her notes. "You've been spending a lot of time with that thing," he remarked casually, leaning against the lab counter. "Anything interesting?" Eleanor glanced up, startled. "Not really," she lied, closing her notebook quickly. "Just trying to understand it." Lin raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Understand it, or connect with it?" His question hung in the air, piercing and unyielding. "I don't know what you mean," she replied, though her voice wavered slightly. He sighed, his expression softening. "Look, I get it. These aliens, they're incredible. They make us feel small, insignificant. But we can't lose ourselves in their world, Eleanor. We have a responsibility to stay grounded in ours." His words struck a chord, stirring guilt and confusion within her. Was she losing herself? Or was she discovering a part of herself she hadn't known existed? Either way, the artifact had become more than a gift. It was a tether, pulling her toward something she couldn't ignore. That night, unable to sleep, Eleanor returned to the Queen's chamber. The Valeth welcomed her without hesitation, guiding her once again to the golden-lit space where the Queen awaited. This time, however, the atmosphere felt different, charged with anticipation, as if the Queen had been expecting her. "You return," the Queen observed, her voice lilting with amusement. "Does the gift trouble you?" Eleanor hesitated, then nodded. "I don't understand it," she admitted. "What does it represent? Why did you give it to me?" The Queen regarded her thoughtfully, her luminous eyes gleaming with an intensity that made Eleanor's breath catch. "It represents union," she said at last. "A joining of two souls, two destinies. Among my people, such gifts are sacred. They signify commitment." The word sent a jolt through Eleanor. Commitment. Marriage. The realization hit her like a thunderclap, shattering her composure. She stumbled back, her heart pounding wildly. You think this is a marriage proposal," she stammered, clutching the artifact tightly. The Queen tilted her head, her expression unreadably serene. "Is that not what it is among your kind? A gesture of devotion, of unity?" Eleanor's mind raced, grappling with the enormity of what she'd just learned. The artifact wasn't just a gift, it was a vow, a promise written in light and shadow. And she, unknowingly, had accepted it. Panic surged within her, followed swiftly by a flood of conflicting emotions. How could she possibly respond to something so monumental, so alien? She had always sought understanding, connection, but this went far beyond anything she had imagined. The weight of the Queen's expectations bore down on her, suffocating in its intensity. I need time, Eleanor managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. This is too much. The Queen's gaze softened, empathy radiating from her crystalline form. Take the time you need, she said gently. But know this, among my people, such bonds are cherished above all else. If you choose to accept, you will never walk alone again. With those words echoing in her ears, Eleanor fled the chamber, her mind a tempest of fear, awe, and undeniable longing. She didn't know whether to run from the artifact, or embrace it completely. In the days that followed, Eleanor withdrew further into herself, retreating from the bustling corridors of the Odyssey to the quiet solitude of her quarters. The artifact rested on the desk before her, its gentle glow casting shifting shadows across the walls. Each time she looked at it, her heart clenched with a mixture of dread and fascination. The Queen's words haunted her, if you choose to accept, you will never walk alone again. The promise was intoxicating, yet terrifying. How could she reconcile her human identity with the alien destiny being offered to her? Her isolation drew concern from the crew, particularly Captain Ramirez, who visited her one evening with a steaming cup of coffee in hand. You've been avoiding everyone, he said bluntly, setting the mug down beside her. Even me. What's going on, Doc? Eleanor hesitated, torn between confiding in him and keeping the truth buried. Finally, she sighed and gestured to the artifact. It's this, she admitted. It's more than I thought it was. More than I can handle. Ramirez frowned, picking up the object and examining it closely. Looks harmless enough, he muttered. What's the big deal? The big deal, Eleanor said, her voice trembling, is that it's not just a gift. It's a proposal. A marriage proposal. Ramirez nearly dropped the artifact, his eyes widening in shock. Wait, what? From the Queen? Are you serious? Dead serious, Eleanor replied, rubbing her temples. Apparently, among the Valeth, giving someone an object like this is equivalent to asking for their hand in marriage. Or whatever passes for marriage in their culture. Ramirez sank into the chair opposite her, staring at the artifact as if it might suddenly sprout legs and scuttle away. Jesus, he breathed. No wonder you've been acting weird. What are you going to do? That's the problem, Eleanor said, her voice cracking. I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. This isn't just some romantic gesture, it's a binding contract, a merging of lives. Cultures. Worlds. How am I supposed to respond to that? Ramirez leaned back, his brow furrowed in thought. Well, first things first, you need to figure out how you feel about it. Do you want this? Could you see yourself with her? The question caught Eleanor off guard. She had avoided confronting her feelings directly, afraid of what she might discover. Now, forced to consider it, she felt a storm of emotions rise within her. There was fear, yes, but also a strange, undeniable pull toward the Queen, a connection that transcended logic and reason. The memories of their conversations flooded back, the Queen's melodic voice, her luminous presence, the way she seemed to understand Eleanor's deepest thoughts without needing words. I don't know, Eleanor whispered, tears welling in her eyes. She's incredible, beautiful, wise. But she's also completely alien. How could I ever hope to understand her, let alone build a life with her? Ramirez placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Love doesn't always make sense, document hell. Half the time it doesn't even feel possible. But when it's real, you'll know. Trust your gut. His advice lingered in her mind long after he left, echoing alongside the Queen's earlier words. Love. Was that what this was? Could love exist across such vast differences? In biology, culture, even existence itself? The idea seemed absurd, yet the ache in her chest told her otherwise. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the Queen's radiant form, heard her symphonic laughter, felt the warmth of her gaze. It wasn't just admiration, it was something deeper, something primal. Still, doubts gnawed at her. What would the rest of humanity think? Would they see her acceptance as betrayal, as abandoning her species for an alien ideal? And what of the Valith? Could she truly integrate into their society, leave behind everything she had ever known? The artifact pulsed softly on the desk, as if sensing her turmoil, urging her to decide. Desperate for clarity, Eleanor sought solace in the stars. She returned to the observation deck, gazing out at the endless expanse of space. The sight of the shimmering sphere in the distance filled her with both awe and trepidation. Somewhere inside that celestial wonder, the Queen waited, patient, hopeful, perhaps even vulnerable. The thought of rejecting her felt unbearable, yet the prospect of accepting terrified her. As she stood there, lost in thought, Dr. Lin approached quietly. "I heard about the situation," he said cautiously. "Are you okay?" Eleanor shook her head, laughing bitterly. "I don't think okay is the right word. I'm stuck between two worlds, neither of which I fully belong to." Lin nodded sympathetically. "It's a tough spot. But maybe that's the point. Maybe you're meant to bridge them." The suggestion struck a chord deep within her. Bridging worlds, that was what she had always dreamed of doing, wasn't it? As a child, she had stared at the stars, yearning to connect with the unknown. Now, the unknown had reached out to her, offering not just knowledge but partnership. Could she turn away from that? Her resolve hardened as she turned back to the artifact. Whether out of courage or desperation, she didn't know. All she knew was that she couldn't keep running from the decision. It was time to face the Queen, and herself. Returning to the sphere, Eleanor felt the weight of every step she took. The luminous pathways leading to the Queen's chamber seemed longer this time, each stride carrying her closer to a future she couldn't predict. Her heart pounded in her chest, a chaotic rhythm that matched the swirl of emotions coursing through her. Fear, excitement, determination, all tangled together in a knot she couldn't untie. She clutched the artifact tightly in her hand, its warmth grounding her even as its significance loomed larger than ever. When she entered the golden-lit chamber, the Queen rose gracefully from her crystalline throne, her opalescent form radiating a calm authority that made Eleanor's breath catch. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the silence between them heavy with unspoken questions and possibilities. Then, with deliberate care, Eleanor stepped forward, holding out the artifact. "I've thought about what you said," she began, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "About what this means. About us." The Queen tilted her head, her luminous eyes searching Eleanor's face. "And," she prompted softly, the single word resonating like a chime. Eleanor swallowed hard, gathering her courage. "I won't lie, I'm scared. This is bigger than anything I've ever faced. Bigger than anything I ever imagined. But," she paused, taking a deep breath. "But I can't deny what I feel. There's something between us, something powerful and real. I don't fully understand it, but I don't think I'm supposed to. Not yet." The Queen's expression softened, a flicker of relief passing over her features. "You honor me with your honesty," she said, her voice rich with emotion. "And with your trust." Eleanor nodded, though tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. "I want to try. To see where this leads. But I need you to understand, it won't be easy. My people, they won't understand. They'll see this as betrayal, as abandoning them. And yours," she trailed off, shaking her head. "I don't even know where I fit in your world." The Queen extended a slender arm, her crystalline fingers brushing lightly against Eleanor's cheek. The touch sent a shiver through her, electric and tender all at once. "You will find your place," the Queen assured her. "Together, we will forge a new path. One that honors both our peoples." Eleanor closed her eyes, leaning into the Queen's touch. For the first time since receiving the artifact, she felt a glimmer of peace, a fragile, tentative hope that maybe, just maybe, this could work. But as quickly as the feeling came, doubt crept back in. What lay ahead was uncharted territory, fraught with challenges neither of them could foresee. Could their bond withstand the pressures of two vastly different civilizations? Could love truly conquer such immense divides? Opening her eyes, Eleanor met the Queen's gaze, resolve hardening within her. If we're going to do this, she said firmly, we need to be honest, with each other, and with our people. No secrets. No hiding. If this is real, it has to stand on its own. The Queen inclined her head, a gesture of agreement. As you wish. We will walk this path together, step by step. For a moment, the tension eased, replaced by a quiet intimacy that wrapped around them like a cocoon. Yet even as Eleanor allowed herself to bask in the Queen's presence, her mind raced with practical concerns. How would she explain this to the crew? To Earth? And how would the Vailith react to having a human as part of their royal lineage? The enormity of the task ahead threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed the thoughts aside. One step at a time, she reminded herself. That was all she could do. As the moment stretched on, Eleanor realized the Queen was waiting patiently, giving her the space to process. Gratitude swelled within her, mingling with the love she was beginning to acknowledge. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't turn back now. Eleanor stood beside the Queen as they addressed both humanity and the Vailith, their voices broadcast across stars. The reactions were mixed, awe, fear, resistance, but Eleanor held her ground, her hand resting on the artifact that now symbolized unity. The Queen turned to her, her radiant form glowing brighter. Together, we will teach them what it means to connect beyond boundaries. Tears streamed down Eleanor's face as she nodded. For the first time, she felt not just a bridge between worlds but a beacon of hope for both. And in that moment, she knew. Love wasn't about understanding everything, it was about trusting the journey. As the two figures stood united, the cosmos seemed to whisper its approval, lighting up with newfound possibilities. Their story had only begun. The days that followed were a whirlwind of diplomacy and discovery. Eleanor worked tirelessly alongside the Queen, navigating the complexities of their newfound bond while addressing the concerns of both species. Humanity grappled with the implications of this union, some celebrating it as a leap toward unity, others fearing it as an abandonment of their identity. Meanwhile, whispers of dissent rippled through the Vailith, their crystalline forms shimmering uneasily at the thought of integrating a human into their sacred traditions. Yet, amidst the chaos, moments of profound connection blossomed between Eleanor and the Queen. They shared stories under the golden glow of the sphere's chambers, their laughter harmonizing like celestial music. The artifact pulsed softly in Eleanor's palm during these times, as if affirming the strength of their bond. It was no longer just a symbol of marriage but a living testament to the courage it took to transcend fear and embrace the unknown. One evening, as they gazed out at Saturn's rings together, the Queen spoke softly. You have given my people something rare, a reason to dream beyond ourselves. Eleanor smiled, her heart swelling with pride and purpose. She realized then that this wasn't just about her or the Queen, it was about forging a legacy of understanding for future generations. But challenges loomed ahead. Negotiations grew tense, and factions on both sides threatened to unravel the fragile peace. As Eleanor prepared to face the trials yet to come, she felt the weight of responsibility, and the unwavering support of the Queen beside her. Together, they would prove that even the vastness of space could not diminish the power of love to unite hearts. Their journey was far from over, but every step forward illuminated the path for those who dared to follow. In a final act of unity, Eleanor and the Queen unveiled a shared vision, a sanctuary where humans and Vailith could coexist, learn, and grow together. The artifact, now placed at its heart, pulsed with radiant light, symbolizing their unbreakable bond. As the first rays of a distant star bathed the sanctuary in warmth, Eleanor turned to the Queen, her voice steady. This is just the beginning. The Queen's melodic laughter echoed softly. Yes. And what a beautiful beginning it is. Hand in hand, they stepped forward into the unknown, their love lighting the way for galaxies yet to meet. Together, they had rewritten destiny, and the stars themselves seemed to sing in harmony.